Hello, everyone, and welcome. Here's what's happening right now. Day 3 of the campaign, dominated by questions over foreign interference.
I won the leadership fair and square.
Defending against allegations by meddling by India.
Rebuild, reinvest, and rearm.
And from defense to housing, dissecting the latest party promises.
It's a bit overwhelming.
Plus, major tech issues leave travel plans up in the air.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
All the party leaders today were responding to reports that agents with India's government organized support for Pierre Poilievre's leadership bid back in 2022, a position he won by a large margin and an outcome Poilievre says was fair and square. CTV senior political correspondent Mike Couture gets right to the meat of the matter, along with reaction from the Liberals and leaders. Hi, Mike.
Sandy, Pierre Poilievre is in Hamilton hoping to secure more support from unions, but it's his lack of security clearance that is once again in the spotlight.
You guys ready to build some homes?
Oh, yeah. The Conservative leader was ready to talk about affordable homes, but questions persist about Pierre Poilievre having his own house in order when it comes to foreign interference. CTV News has confirmed that India attempted to interfere in the 2022 Conservative leadership contest, which Poilievre won. There's no indication the meddling affected the outcome of the race.
I won the leadership fair and square.
CSIS didn't share the information with Poilievre because he refused to get the necessary security clearances to receive classified briefings on foreign interference in Canada, something his opponents seized on.
I find it downright irresponsible that the leader of the opposition, day after day, month after month, year after year, refuses to obtain his security clearance.
That, to me, disqualifies you as a prime minister candidate. It's not someone that we can trust to stand up to foreign interference.
Poilievre defended his decision to not take briefings, saying it would hamper his abilities to hold the government to account.
So they bring me into a dark room and they'll say, we're going to give you a little bit of breadcrumbs of intel, and then we'll tell you can't talk about any of this stuff anymore.
However, the former national security advisor to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says being briefed on foreign interference would not muzzle Poilievre.
So holding the government to account, you can do without revealing top secret information or secret information. And he should be able to do both of those things.
Poilievre insists he already has security clearance because he was a minister in the Harper government a decade ago. But security experts say that clearance could have expired by now. Sandy?
All right, thank you, Mike, in Hamilton. Now, before interference became the issue of the day, Pierre Poilievre made some key promises, including a pledge to help homebuyers. The other leaders also agree housing is a key talking point. CTV's Rachel Aiello now with the messaging on housing. Okay, Rachel, break it down for us.
Sandy, the persisting challenge Canadians are facing in finding a place to call home at a price they can afford has become a top issue on the federal campaign trail as parties try to bring renewed attention to a topic that was once set to be a major ballot box issue before the trade war. Today, the Conservatives announced an expansion of their existing pledge to remove the GST from new homes under $1 million to include homes that cost up to $1.3 million.
Now, $1 million is not enough to get the average home in many markets. It's almost surreal, isn't it?
Pierre Poilievre said this move could save buyers up to $3,000 in annual mortgage payments. Yesterday in Montreal, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh visited the same shovel-ready vacant land that he stood on during the 2021 election to make a point about Liberal inaction on affordable housing. There, he promised to set aside 100% of suitable federal land to build more than 100,000 rent-controlled homes by 2035. Today, Singh met with a renter about her challenges as a tenant in downtown Toronto.
But I couldn't afford to move and stay in this neighborhood.
We're not in it for large corporate landlords. I'm going to fight like hell to make sure you don't have to live in that fear and that worry.
Before calling the election, Mark Carney said he'd offer first-time home buyers similar GST relief to what the Conservatives are proposing. But on the trail, the Liberals so far haven't unveiled any fresh housing proposals.
I'm just going to ask for your patience for a couple of more days. is we need to build affordable housing at a scale we haven't seen since the Second World War. My government is going to do that.
With homes in Canada costing roughly 3 times as much as middle-class Canadians can afford, experts caution there isn't a simple solution and say Canadians should assess parties' entire housing plans once they're released.
There are no easy, quick fix answers to the crisis that a lot of Canadians find themselves in. There's only treating housing like a long-term infrastructure issue and making policies that will last longer than one term of government.
While Singh's announcement today was housing focused, he did not make any new policy commitments. This at a time when his party's foundation of support appears to be on unstable ground. Sandy?
CTV's Rachel Aiello. All right, and Mark Carney also spent another day in Atlantic Canada trying to shore up support for the Liberals in a region which for so many years was a Liberal stronghold. His focus today, defence spending. CTV's Judy Trin is travelling with the Liberal leader and outlines promises made.
Standing in front of a wall of workers responsible for building the next generation of warships, Mark Carney said a Liberal government would protect Canada by relying more on itself, not the United States.
We're over the shock of the betrayal, but we should never forget the lessons.
The Liberal defense policy promises to boost naval resources by building more submarines and heavy icebreakers to defend the North, and to also build both aerial and aquatic drones to patrol Arctic skies and waters. He also wants to give soldiers a raise. The better pay would hopefully boost recruitment. The Canadian forces currently face a shortage of 14,500 members.
Defense spending has more than doubled in the last decade. But it's not enough for the new environment we're in. And that's why today I'm announcing my plan to rebuild, reinvest, and rearm.
After the shipyard visit, Carney toured a marine research facility but did not provide any costing to his plan. Analysts say the Liberal promises are useless if the government cannot speed up procurement and change the parameters to allow Canadian companies to compete.
Then we're going to have to change some of the processes that we've been following for the last several decades.
Carney says he will streamline procurement and use Canadian suppliers. At his final stop in Halifax, Carney greeted a political soldier returning to the front lines. Former Housing Minister Sean Fraser, who decided not to run the same day Chrystia Freeland refused to deliver the fall economic statement, says he's changed his mind.
This is an extremely important election. Over the course of the last few months, having a little more time at home than I've grown accustomed to, watching the conversations play out in my community, not just what we see on the news, but about the impact of the potential trade war on jobs in my own community, made me feel like I wanted to do something to serve.
The Liberals say they will release details about how they will pay for their defense initiatives in the next few weeks when they release their full Liberal platform. Sandy.
All right, Judy, thank you. Okay, time to bring in CTV's chief political correspondent, Vashi Kapelas. Vashi, I want to circle back to the CSIS intel on foreign interference in the Conservative leadership bid in 2022. Could this possibly affect the election campaign?
Well, I think, Sandy, a couple of things can be true at the same time. First, for a number of Canadians, back when Pierre Poilievre initially took a stance against getting the security clearance, their sentiment, whether for Poilievre's stance or against it, I think for many people was baked in. The difference is he took that stance at a time when he was 20 points ahead of the Liberals. Now he is within the margin of error, and so it becomes often for a number of Canadians, I think, a question of leadership of all the candidates. And so any kind of issue that might inform their thoughts as to that candidate's leadership could end up being a factor.
Okay, now the revelation of foreign interference certainly overshadowed policy messaging, at least for a while. Let's give a listen first to some promises that Poilievre made on social programs, and then you and I will talk about it.
We will protect these programs, and no one who has them will lose them. We will make sure that nobody loses their dental care. We will also, on child care, we all believe that there should be more affordable child care in this country. While honoring the agreements on childcare with the provinces, we're going to give more freedom and flexibility to parents, providers, and provinces to support the childcare of all the kids.
All right, Vashi, what do these promises to protect, Poilievre's words, tell you about the Conservatives?
Well, I think strategically what I'll be watching is whether or not this impacts the Liberals' critique of the Tories, which for months and months and months prior to Donald Trump had focused on their proposition or their accusation that the Tories would cut these social programs. The Tories did not detail until today exactly what they would do, and not for lack of trying. I've asked about 1,000,000 times. So the fact that they will now keep those certain programs, I think, is significant and is a very specific promise that the leader of the Conservatives is making. Does it take some of the oxygen out of the way in which the Liberals have been criticizing the Tories or telling Canadians that they're going to take those programs away? That remains to be seen. And overall, how much of a factor does stuff like this play when you're up against the dominant issue of Donald Trump, or what might be the dominant issue of Donald Trump? That also remains to be seen, Sandy.
Yeah. Okay, Vashi, as always, thank you. Now, Vashi brought up Donald Trump, and today his top intelligence officials were in the hot seat, facing questions over secret military plans that were shared over an unclassified group chat and with a reporter, something that Canada's Liberal leader called a serious issue. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbon has been watching the committee hearings along with us today. And Joy, talk to us about the information that was shared and how a journalist came to be included.
Sandy, it's pretty shocking. Democrats slammed the Trump administration for leaking what it says is top secret information. And this happened after a reporter was added to a group chain on Signal. That's a commercial app that a lot of people use. I even use it. Atlantic editor-in-chief Jeffrey Goldberg was added to the group by National Security Advisor Mike Walls. But Goldberg says it was Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth who shared sensitive war plans like specific targets, how many strikes, and minute-by-minute timing of the bombing campaign against the Houthi rebels. At the Intelligence Committee, things got a bit testy. Take a listen to this.
This was not only sloppy, it not only violated all procedures, but if this information had gotten out, American lives could have been lost. The Houthis had this information, could reposition their defensive systems.
There was no classified material that was shared in that.
So then,
Signal
if there was no
check.
classified material, share it with the committee. You can't have it both ways. These are important jobs. This is our national security.
Okay, Joy, and that's what I want to talk about. You know, how serious a security breach is this, and what does it say by extension about intelligence gathering under the Trump administration?
Well, Democrats say it's pretty serious. They're demanding that heads roll, either Waltz or Hegseth be fired. But the White House is shifting blame, bashing the reporter for the leak. So far, President Donald Trump is standing by his man, Security Advisor Mike Walls. Here's what he had to say.
The attack was totally successful. It was, I guess, from what I understand, took place during, and it wasn't classified information. So this was not classified. Now, if it's classified information, it's probably a little bit different. But I always say you have to learn from every experience. I think it was very unfair the way they attacked Michael.
Sandy, Trump says Walls doesn't need to apologize or explain. In the meantime, Goldberg, the reporter, is consulting lawyers and says there is more to come. Sandy?
Fascinating, Joy. Thank you. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance says he is joining his wife on a controversial trip to Greenland, which has already been slammed by the island's leaders.
And you know, there was so much excitement around Usha's visit to Greenland this Friday that I decided that I didn't want her to have all that fun by herself, and so I'm going to join her.
Vance says he'll visit the U.S. Space Force in Greenland and look at security there. He joins a growing list of U.S. delegates making trips to the territory this week, including National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. Greenland's outgoing Prime Minister has called the visits, quote, highly aggressive, considering Donald Trump's remarks about taking over the territory. Well, tragedy on the slopes of BC. 3 heliskiers were killed in an avalanche on the east side of Kootenay Lake. The shocking event watched by a helicopter pilot flying overhead. CTV's BC Bureau Chief Andrew Johnson now on what happened and the rescue operation. Andrew.
Sandy, the siren sounded by the people in the helicopter watching the slide barrel toward 2 groups of skiers below them may have saved multiple lives, but not everyone was able to get to safety in time. It happened yesterday afternoon in a watershed near the town of Kaslo. RCMP say the victims had just finished skiing down a bowl and were waiting to be picked up by that helicopter. When the pilot sounded the avalanche alarm, one group of skiers took off on foot and managed to get out of the path of the slide. But the other group was swept away. Rescuers scrambled to try to free the skiers from the snow, but 3 of them were found dead, including their guide, who is a local. The other 2 victims are men in their 40s, one from Whistler, the other American. A 4th person caught in the avalanche survived, a local man who Mounties say suffered critical injuries and was airlifted to hospital.
One of the first times I've seen that happen, where someone was able to observe and then warn those on the ground. And I honestly, I think if that didn't happen, we would have been looking at an even more tragic event.
The area is currently rated high for avalanche danger due to rising temperatures and a weakening snowpack. This is the second recent tragedy in the region. In 2023, an avalanche in the Kaslo backcountry killed 2 skiers, both police officers from the neighboring town of Nelson. Sandy.
Andrew Johnson coming up after the break. Grounded by tech issues. How a system failure triggered travel chaos. Frustration for travelers at Montreal's Trudeau International Airport today after technical issues led to long delays. CTV's Geneviève Beauchemin is at the airport. And Jen, what are those technical issues?
A really major glitch that really scrambled so many passengers' planes. So what's happening here is that the airport says that there was an update that was supposed to be pushed overnight, but it didn't work as well as it should have. Definitely, they're still trying to fix it now because airlines couldn't issue passengers. They couldn't check them in, couldn't issue baggage tags. There were also security kiosks that were thrown offline. So really a major scramble here. Here's what the airport authority had to say about the situation and who was impacted.
For the delays in flights, we're looking at around 20% of our flights. There were some airlines that were able to process the passengers this morning as usual, and other airlines, through their system, was more difficult to do it manually.
Major scramble. Okay, it looks pretty bad, right?
Oh, there were so many people that showed up here in the morning, and it was quite a bit of chaos here. People didn't know what flights they were going to get on, whether they were going to get on flights. There were flights that were canceled, put off till tomorrow. So many families here. Many of them were on the Sunwing flights, and they were going on vacation, but they had to spend the entire day here at the airport. Here's what some of them had to say.
We've been here since 6:50 this morning. Nobody's telling us anything. I'm getting updates on my phone constantly. So now I don't know if it's true, if we're leaving tonight at 9 o'clock. We were supposed to leave at 9:30 this morning. So it might be 9 o'clock tonight.
We've been here since, what time? 7 o'clock this morning.
She knows.
Yeah, well, that's
You're
it.
counting down the hours.
Yeah, I've been here for so long, I'm a brain dead right now, you know?
And there's impacts on other airports as well because, of course, of the cascading effects, and it's still not fixed here, Sandy.
So frustrating. Jen, thank you. Still ahead, a tale of 2 taxes, how carbon tax cuts and promises are impacting Canadians. Climate change was an issue well before the election call, and it still is. CTV's Kathy Lee talks to some folks who are invested in promises made by the leaders.
Passion turned into business. Gordon Fontaine's kiosk is a vibrant collage of traditional Italian staples.
We focus on olive oil and balsamic vinegar.
The entrepreneurial life has its ups and downs. Fontaine says the consumer carbon tax contributing to those challenges.
It's affecting our bottom line for sure. We're cooking with gas. We're using gas to deliver all our products or diesel.
What looked to be a carbon tax election has now changed. The issue appears to be less prominent since Mark Carney dropped the consumer carbon price, which will see prices fall on April 1st.
An expert says the average price decrease at the pumps for most of Canada will be about 19 cents a litre, but that won't last long.
2 weeks from April 1st, we have the switch over from winter to summer gasoline.
That will see an increase net of about 6 cents a litre.
But there remains a political gap on the industrial carbon tax aimed at large emitters.
These would be facilities like oil sands facilities, electric generators.
The Liberals will keep it, the Conservatives will cut it, and instead expand clean technology tax credits.
If we are indeed trying to diversify our exports and export more products to more countries, it's doubly important right now that we do have an industrial carbon price.
The three other parties haven't officially released a carbon tax policy, but have supported green energy initiatives. In a statement, the NDP says it will make big polluters pay their fair share. Back at Sofrito, Fontaine will be watching the campaign closely.
Hopefully we can take them at their word that they're going to do what they say.
Optimistic the consumer carbon tax is gone for good. Kathy Lee, CTV News, Calgary.
After the break, dipping into community concerns in Steeltown.
I'm John Valley-Rao in Hamilton. We're at a popular donut shop and talking to voters about their election priorities. That's coming up.
We want to give you a daily snapshot of election issues that resonate with Canadians in their respective regions. So today we're in Steeltown, Hamilton, on the shores of Lake Ontario, where CTV's John Valley-Rao taps into what's on the minds of voters.
While Hamilton is home to major steel producers, historically shaping its economy and skyline, it's also billed as the city of waterfalls and a hotspot for young families fleeing Toronto for more affordable housing. And it's at this popular donut shop.
They're just classic. They're just the best classic donuts you can get.
That we asked Hamiltonians the question. What is your top priority heading into this election that the politicians need to do?
Somebody who can stand up to Trump. Definitely.
Make sure we stay Canada and not become one of the 51st state.
The tariff and border crisis, for sure.
As they served up donuts, Trump trumping all other issues. But what are some other priorities?
Taking care of the elderly. Like, we need more homes. We need better care in the hospitals as we age. And I'm aging, so I know I'm a little worried.
Many here also expressing concerns about the cost of living and inflation. Shop owner Samantha Whips is worried about the price of ingredients going up and affordability issues in general.
The cost of living, really, honestly, for everybody. The cost, I mean, it trickles down to the business, obviously, so the cost for everything is honestly the biggest concern.
Customer Leo Cordova told us he's working 3 jobs to make ends meet, and he'd like to see the government somehow get wages up.
Everything's too expensive. Let's just put it that way.
With voters having lots to think about and digest ahead of Election Day. John Valley-Rao, CTV News, Hamilton.
Thank you for sharing your time with us. I'm Sandy Ronaldo. Be sure to catch your local CTV News, which is coming up. We'll see you tomorrow as we continue our coverage of Election 2025. Bye for now.